Have you guys ever actually sat down and tried to talk amongst yourselves about the concept of the burn to each other? I bet it went sort of like this, right? Um, it was a family of Kelpians on this spaceship that crash landed on this 100% dilithium comprised world, right? Most of the Kelpians that crash landed died of dilithium radiation poisoning, except for this young one whose DNA was altered by the radiation, where he developed a symbiotic relationship with the dilithium world. Right? Oh, okay. Because of some emotional episodes that this kid was having, this symbiotic relationship with the dilithium reacted to those bouts. One day he had a bout so bad that basically it destabilized all the dilithium throughout the galaxy, right? And every type of device, whether it was on a planet or whether it was on a space station, whether it was in a starship, any device that used dilithium that was active during matter and antimatter mixture basically had catastrophic effects. And this cut off all member worlds of the Federation. It cut off a whole lot of travel throughout space because dilithium crystals was basically dangerous to use and became inert. Yeah, and this all happened because this kid had developed a symbiotic relationship to dilithium. So first off, I'm sorry about having to talk to about Discovery with you guys because I know how everybody feels about Discovery, including me. As you can see, when you try to explain the concept of the burn to somebody, there's a lot of things that break down, especially when you talk to some people who deal in Star Trek lore and even just baseline like watching the show. One, before that episode of Star Trek Discovery, there was no connection over subspace between dilithium crystals. In other words, what affected one dilithium source would not affect any other dilithium source. This was something established in that particular episode to make the burn work. Two, there's been no evidence in Star Trek canon of dilithium radiation affecting a species that forms a symbiotic relationship with dilithium. Now, it could be said that the Kelpians is a new race, and we don't know how Kelpian physiology will work being exposed to dilithium radiation, but we have an example. It's called Saru. He joined Starfleet. He went through Starfleet ranks. He serves on Starship vessels, which means that he's been around dilithium radiation, and he never shown any type of development of symbiosis with dilithium. Point number three. By the time of the next generation, mining pure dilithium had kind of went by the wayside. Yeah, they still kind of did it, but even in the TOS era, pure dilithium was kind of a rare resource, right? So by the TNG era and on, they had developed ways to synthetically produce dilithium crystals, and not only synthetically produce them, but recrystallize them or regenerate them or reform their crystalline structures. All right. Now, there is a difference between synthetic dilithium crystals and recrystallized dilithium crystals, where the synthetic crystals they can't handle as much power as the recrystallized crystals, and nearly not as much as the 100% pure dilithium crystals. But that being said, having synthetic dilithium crystals modified so that the effects of the burn wouldn't affect it, right? Yeah, that is something totally within Starfleet's ability. The next thing is that the writers of the burn would have us believe that for centuries, Starfleet, the Federation, other worlds wouldn't have tried to develop technology that would bypass the need of dilithium crystals. When we know for a fact in Star Trek canon, even with the abundance of dilithium-based space travel, there were still races trying to develop alternate means. Think of the Soliton wave. Think of the Romulan point singularity, which they tried to say, hey, this is something that the Federation tried to mimic, but after it didn't work, we gave up on it. No, you guys are allies with the Vulcans and the Romulans by now, which, yeah, they still would use that technology. And if they didn't use that technology, they would still have literature explaining how that technology works. And again, since y'all allies, they would have no problem in helping you guys to figure that out and adapt your ships. Let's not also mention that by this time, Janeway's Borg technology should have become basically obsolete. Everything that future Janeway had brought back by the time of the burn should be just normal everyday technology. So you have things like transwarp conduits, Borg style technology. Not to mention all of the established alternative means of transporting, wormholes, portal technology, Iconian gate technology, all the way down to basic long range beaming, like, say, the Dominion use. All of the engineers, scientists, and inventors that make up the Federation and just regular worlds and civilizations in the Milky Way wouldn't have just given up like that. The next thing is they would have us believe that the only thing keeping member worlds together, the Federation together, was warp travel. That without warp travel, that only connection, that the member worlds would fall apart. And I just can't believe that based on established canon. Because even though warp travel broke down, subspace communication doesn't work on dilithium based technology, meaning they still had the same level of communication with each member world, each outpost, each base that survived the burn, and still were able to collaborate in ways of counteracting the effects of the burn. It ain't like because warp travel broke down, oh, well, now we don't know nothing about what happened with nobody, like they had us believe in that series. And that being said, was this connection through subspace just restricted to our galaxy, or did it expand to, say, the Andromeda galaxy, where it messed with people like Kelvins from the episode, for instance, of the original series by any other name? So there's a lot of questions that people had surrounding the burn, and there's a lot of canon that was changed and altered due to people not understanding said canon. And that's one of the big reasons why Discovery didn't continue to not do so well, because of the lack of that understanding. And when you put situations like that to Trekkies, yeah, it could have presented such a great storyline about how those member worlds gathered together, pulled their resources to basically redo the Federation the way it was actually supposed to have been done. But the way they decided to write that out in the series, it just wasn't Trek, right? And it just broke too many rules. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And as always, peace, recycle, and say the whales. You guys be cool.